the connection to the service road that the city will have as a local road. And I know that the applicant has actually still wanted to have another entrance down at the foot of the development closer to Homewood. Engineering has given us justification in the report stating that they still feel that they support Cherion's movement for the traffic through this development, not to wind the streets and think that they're dispersing traffic off of the road. The collector road is Willowbrook, and then that road would connect from Willowbrook over to the service road. And that's a direct kind of alignment there. Anyway, if you have any questions.
All right, Pam, thank you. We'll do a roll call. Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson here. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis, I have a couple of questions. The first one was about the wall. And I'm looking at the bottom of page 8 and looking at sheet. It says that it's on sheet 73, but it's actually 74. I just wanted, it talked about, let me see, first of all, I wanted to know on page 7, on sheet 74, I was trying to see exactly where this wall was depicted, and I don't see it. I see the overlay zone and the noise impact zone, but where's the actual wall? And I'm looking at sheet 74 of 74.
On 1 second, and I'm trying to pull that file up. Share the screen and show that.
Yeah, it's a large file. It may take a while for it to load.
Yeah, it's 74 sheets. I'm like, it's huge. It's a monster.
Yeah.
Apologies. If you had another question, we can, if you want to go back to that one.
Yeah, sure. And so the other question I had was, it mentioned, I'm trying to find where I saw that. It mentioned, please excuse my dog. He's rather chatty today. Page 8, yes. It mentions that it says, then the commission may approve a preliminary and final plat or a final site plan with condition of implementing noise mitigation measures to reduce the decimal levels for the townhome units at the residential lot line of 265 decimals. And so what I'm wondering is, can you provide us with guidance of what type of noise mitigation measures could be considered as part of the conditions?
You're talking about, well, one is the wall that is going to be mitigated for the outside noise, and then the interior noise is what the materials will be used for the units. And that will be checked by the building department to make sure that these are at the building permit time, that they have that noise controlled with, could be more, I don't know, what's it called? I can't even think. My head's dizzy. Insulation or whatever they would, or thickness of the wall maybe might be additional. I really don't know, but they really have to meet that with the building department review.
Okay, so with the wall and then the additional construction materials and work, that should meet that mitigation. There would be no reason for us to consider anything like any conditions to go with that, correct?
No, you're just looking at, because you won't be seeing that at the permit stage, and plus you are looking at that modification for the wall to mitigate that outside, plus location of the wall if you feel you don't like the location of the wall. But anyway, it's like I said, it's being coincided as a fence around the units.
Okay. Now, my other comment was we never got a chance to see, like they gave us a little rendering of the wall, but we never got to see a real good depiction of that wall. And I'm wondering, with that wall, will there be any softening of the wall by using vegetation around the wall, the side that's facing 15 and then the other side that's facing the community? Will there be any vegetation such as, like, I don't know, shrubbery or dangling,
I think the applicant,
270, that wall that I drive by, that noise, I guess, reduction or whatever wall, they have like things, dangling off of it to make it look softer aesthetically. So that's what I'm wondering.
they have talked about that there will be landscaping in front of that wall, and I guess I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and check the landscaping sheets and make sure that it's shown. But as for softening it inside on the lots, I don't think. I think that would be up to the homeowner if they wanted to plant trees in front of it or something like that on their lot. But on the outside, like you said, along facing US 15 or something, it's still an HOA land. They would have the ability to put landscaping along there. And I believe, I'm not positive about attenuation walls, how they apply the landscaping on the walls, but sometimes I think that landscaping, just like rough mountainsides and stuff, the seeds and stuff sometimes germinate there on its own, and it continues to be like ivy or whatever else. And maybe they do plant it. I'm not sure what they propose.
Okay. So yeah, and then my other question was back to that wall that I couldn't find, the elusive wall on sheet 74.
Okay. The red angles there is the wall locations.
Okay, right there. Okay. And then right there. Okay. Wow, is not that many places.
Into the blue areas, right? Where the
Right.
highway noise overlay.
Right.
So I just want to make sure I understand. So those red spots like there that I see, they're going out, to where the blue areas are, all the way off to the left and to the right, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're bordering the back of those. After looking at this, I think we may have to ask for some extension of those walls. I'm not sure why they shortened them on the back, because the side of those units really should have a wall across there.
Right.
It's only at the exterior spaces though.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, at the ground level
Yeah.
exterior. So like, for example, this guy right here, if we can see,
Yeah.
this is outside of the highway noise overlay.
Oh.
The wall is covering all of the property line that's got exterior ground level space.
Okay.
It looks like
There's a big gap in between because it's not part of the overlay zone. Then you get to the other side where there's another one, correct? Is that how?
But go down. Sorry, go down to that set.
this chunk.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
So the walls be all along the rear property lines within the highway noise overlay in order to protect or to lever the sound levels at ground level.
Outside.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the side? So where it says noise impact zone, there's a green spot. Those two green spots are not covered by that red. Is that going to be covered by the red?
So then you're into only interior space of the units.
Oh.
And then it'll have to be down at that 45 interior.
Okay.
Right. You're trying to lower the sound levels at the exterior of the structure at the ground level. So at the end of those units on the property line, there's no exterior space that needs to be protected. Or
okay. Yeah, this may not be a good picture because that's kind of hard to tell, really, kind of, sort of. It
And
just,
it's only, sorry, it's
Go
only the backs, it's not the fronts.
Correct, and like the side in some instances.
Well, it's the front yard right there. If you go to the front yard,
yes,
that's not being protected.
right. They're
And
not totally walled in.
yeah, but I don't understand that. I don't understand. So,
They're looking for, I guess, for open space for enjoyment of their units without having that noise impact on them. I
Okay.
think they probably look at the front as, you're driving out your car and you're leaving and you're really not sitting there,
okay. Okay, but you could probably still hear the noise, I'm assuming, from the front part of your home. I don't know.
That's where the building construction is going to have to come in.
Right. Gotcha. Okay. My other question was about the access management. I don't know, what page was that on? I think that was page, I don't know what page that was on. That was page,
You talking about the separation distances or the cul-de-sac or?
okay, so it was about the Lamplighter Drive. I think I needed to get some clarification on that. And Heather Leaf, and I was trying to find it on the sheet. And I think it would have been helpful to say, please see sheet so-and-so, if that might have helped. But I'm looking at, maybe that's the sheet before 70, was it 70? Oh, here it is. That was the sheet that should have been 73. There's no number on it, but I'm looking at it and it shows Land Bay E, but it also shows the Lamplighter Drive access road, I think it is. And then the Heather Leaf Street. And I think staff or someone mentioned not having an access road that way, but having one on the Lamplighter Drive. Is that correct?
Yes. This is an old exhibit that we're asking to be corrected because after you get to the point of designing the development further down the road and where the road construction grid is actually falling, that our traffic engineer supported Lamplighter Road as a midpoint for this area for the development to connect to the service road. He wanted this Heath Life to be closed off, not having, people going through the development or whatever. This is more of a straight, area to go over and connect to a local road. He did not see this as a cut through. This is going to be a local road with parking and it will slow traffic, but it'd be more direct to the service road. They did give you an extensive justification in the staff report. And like I said, we are with the applicant, agree to disagree.
Okay.
And then with this, as we've recommended, this exhibit would be corrected.
Okay, the one that I don't know what you're looking at, but this one would have been sheet 73 I'm looking at. And I can't tell, like I see, is it an up-to-date sheet? I can't tell where the service road would connect to on Lamplighter Drive. Like, is it like?
Here's Lamp. And here is where the future service road would connect across the linear park. And then this kind of dotted in line is the service road in the future. They're showing, here's that heart leaf. They're showing that they would like to also connect there. But as Pam noted, we're asking for the plans as a condition of approval to be revised on all the applicable sheets to no longer show this connection, only show it as a turnaround for emergency vehicles and other service vehicles to be able to turn around and get back out that way. And then Lamplighter would continue to be shown in this manner on all the sheets.
Okay.
I think the confusion on the exhibit that Dorothy's talking about, because I'm looking at it and I felt the same, that service road actually has US Route 15
It does.
overlaid on it. Now you look at the little call outs and you can see future service roads. So I think that was the source of the confusion.
Yep.
Yeah, the 15 is more than parallel. The service road
Right.
would be parallel
Yeah.
to it, but 15 is further
Yeah.
east.
Yep.
Okay, and the last question I had was on page 11, and that was in regards to, the access management, the separation standards. So the standard is that the separation distance should be 150 feet between two local roads. And
Right.
they're asking for 32 feet.
As the minimal for that one called out for Black Oak Drive and Wild Rye Circle.
Okay, when it says to a minimum of, is that like a standard? Or is that like the minimum that they're asking for, I guess, a modification because it doesn't meet the standard?
That's the minimum they're asking for to work with that, those roads. They also have the one above that's going to be 102, so it would meet the minimum of 32, but it's still under the 150. They've not called out, and I asked them this. I said, are all the rest of them going to meet our standard? And they assured me that the rest of them meet our standard.
Okay, I think my question is, what is staff position or thoughts about this? I mean, will it, is it doable? Will it have any impact or any issues?
I can't recall. I think we would have mentioned it if the engineering department or traffic engineer had found problems with it.
Okay, and that was one last question was about the diamond. I don't even know if it really even matters with this, but I was wondering where the urban diamond interchange was on any of these sheets, but I don't know whether it matters or not, but I was just curious.
It's very likely, as Gabrielle's showing here, as Willowbrook will go here across, and you've got open space around it and everything, but it's for construction possibilities for what they've shown. We did not ask for the intersection to be shown. This is something that's still being thought out by SHA way down the road.
Okay.
And the only thing that they wanted to do for this section 2 is to make sure they left enough land area for this intersection future to be built.
Okay.
And that's what this very faint gray line, it's probably on most of the sheets, but this very faint gray line is showing that right away. Everything out here would be, for right of way reservation for the future.
Okay.
For that.
Thank you. That was it. That was all my questions. I'm over down to get my soggy food. I'll be right back.
Well, that was very helpful. Commissioner Beatty.
Yeah, the only question I have, I didn't have it until Dorothy asked her very good questions. The area where, if we can go back to the red line showing the fences. There we go. In the one, it only happens in one section, and I'm not sure how it works out. What happens in it? It looks like we're creating some kind of blocked off alleyway in between, exactly, right in there. What happens in that area? Are we concerned about security problems where you have two very high walls on both sides leading into a linear park?
This is something you had talked about with the Spring Bank, because they had their modification for their attenuation wall. Their wall wasn't quite as tall. It was 7 feet, I think. So it wasn't quite that big. And we were a little concerned with safety and security. I think the applicant will have to address that and how they will move forward with this HOA area. I mean,
It just seems to me that is trouble in the making right in there. Nobody can see anything that's going on inside there. Are there access points through that fence to the backyards of these homes?
I don't think,
Is that an alleyway? Is that what the purpose is for garbage pickup, et cetera? Or is that, it's shown as green?
yeah,
already?
it's going to be planted. As far as I know, it's HOA open space.
Okay,
Because these are front loaded units, as you can see here. So this is not a road. This is all green space.
yeah,
It
and
could
this,
be mowed, it could be planted. You know, I would hope that as often as they have to mow in the summer, that they would have to come through and monitor some of the concerns, you know, and for it. But it's a good question for the applicant, because we did address that with Springbank.
we did, and ironically, it's just basically right across US 15 from that, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just seems to me that this is an even bigger issue because it accesses the linear park, and it just seems there's just no eyeballs in that space. It seems like that would be kind of a dangerous thing.
They could always, I guess, extend that wall so it's blocked off, I would think. But those pathways through the linear park, we've asked for them to disappear because this is something that we've said that the Parks and Rec will decide where pathway systems would be built or whatever, and connections made. The Lamplighter Drive will have its path system along the street and connect to the service road. The service road will have the path system, shared use path system on its profile to go, you know, connect further down, follow out to Baker Park, our whole path system.
And as in this whole process of approvals, we do get police to weigh in on these things, correct?
I have to say, I don't
and
believe I had police look at this plan.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay.
I'm going to follow up on that because actually I'm very glad that Commissioner Beatty opened that up because I didn't see it. What if, I mean, why couldn't, instead of having two parallel walls on the property lines, why couldn't there be one in the middle on the HOA line?
I
Okay.
assume they could be. If that would satisfy that open space area in the back, if that one wall would satisfy that sound in their yards, I guess it could be.
Actually, you just gave something else that I hadn't thought about. Duh. Forget the long parallel walls behind. Just connect that one wall because you had mentioned that Parks and Rec didn't want to have an opening. Yeah, just have that one wall, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of these things that they've shown on the plan should be cleaned up in retrospect of how they're showing the path systems and stuff. We've asked for those things to be removed out of the park area. So that will be something that will be cleaned up.
Okay. Well, I really am looking to the applicant to address this. And I know that this will be the hearing and we're supposed to vote on this on Monday. But I would, one is if they're not supposed to have the path coming out, then they probably, the easiest and the least expensive for them would be just to have that one wall. And I would also think that the potentially that the homeowners would prefer that because it would allow them then to put whatever they want to put in the back of their homes and not necessarily have that wall.
Yeah, I guess we'll reach out to them before Monday and have them analyze if that
address that
wall will satisfy the noise.
Okay. And then if not, I would like to have them look at than just having a T instead of 2 feet, like, or 2 L's. So it would be one wall going vertically through the HOA, where there probably would need to be some kind of easements where the property owners were. I don't know how that would work, but if you didn't have the wall and it was just the grass, the HOA would have to come down and mow it anyway.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and maybe they're concerned about having the. I'm just following this thinking through because it was similar to the spring bank across the street. If that wall were, let's say, 4 feet away from the back of the property owner's lot, and they wanted to put up their own fence, I thought we said something that would prohibit those fences going up. Anyway, I just think more thought needs to go into this and have them come back and present their findings to us.
I'll pull out the spring bank and see what we had as any conditions of approval if we did in
Okay.
regard to that fence and everything.
Okay. I guess the only other question I had was with these 2 issues of the right in and right out on Willowbrook and then the second connection to the service road on Heartleaf. I heard you say that you've agreed to disagree, but following the workshop, were there further conversations? Did actually you try to work things out with the applicant, or did the applicant so I'm just curious about that.
We took the response from the applicant and we've provided you that, as an attachment so you could see what their response was. We have been pretty much stating this connection and the right in, right out to the applicant many times, as Cherian has noted. And they pretty much are holding their ground that they feel they want it. And so we, as responding to their response to us, we, address with engineering and for justification of what we're looking for. And so we've included that in the staff report. As for the right in, right out off of Willowbrook Road, that is part of Section 3. This plan for Section 3 is going to be forthcoming to you soon, but because it is not part of Section 2, Cherian has told the applicant to take this off the plan until we can analyze and look at Section 3 for its own merits as part of the Willowbrook. So the applicant has continually tried to show this. We don't know if they think that's given some kind of approval, but it's really not. It has to be approved through the Section 3. So there's really no justification to show it through Section 2. So we've asked for them to remove it.
And I read that on page at the second sentence on 13, or the first one, I guess. So, and in reading this and from what you have said, my takeaway is if the applicant does not show this right in, right out on this Section 2, that doesn't preclude it from being in Section 3.
Yeah, if it comes in and Cherian finds that it's got merit, whatever, he would maybe support it. Right now, he doesn't support it, and he's actually said he doesn't think he would support it because this is a collector road, and you want to be able to, he's got another connection very close to this one. It's very close to the circle for safety reasons, and right now he's under the assumption that he would not support it, but it still would be looked at phase 3.
Okay. Thank you. Any further questions from any commissioners? Commissioner Nallis, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just following up on what Pam just said. So Cherian doesn't agree. What does that mean? I know that you said that you could look at it, I guess with Section 3 or something. Is that what you said? I'm just trying to follow. Like, if he doesn't agree, then what does that mean?
it means that we don't have section 3 area to look at right now to understand if that connection needs to be made. His first intuition with the design of the project as it's going is that it's a collector road. You don't want a lot of intersections on a collector road. The collector is to move traffic. And if you have it has a circle to the south, it also has a connection to the north and and to the north, and it may be too close in between. Maybe might need our separation standards, but as safety goes, Cherion's not thinking that this is something that has merit at this time until he really looks at phase 3.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, I think that wraps up the discussion on that item. Now we will go to our second item, and this will be the first of 2 required public meetings, so we will not be taking any votes on this one, and it's the Overlook East Wayside Apartments.
Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, so as we were stating, as we went down with this project, because it's in the Carroll Creek overlay, you're going to be looking at the approvals for a certificate of urban design compliance and a certificate for architectural compliance. And under the urban design compliance, that one requires the 2 meetings, and that's why this will come back to you again. As for the site plan itself, it's asking for a modification for the front setback. I know there was a lot of discussion on how you felt about the front setback. Our historic preservation reviewers looked at this and before through their site plan review and with the HPO that's on the project and its impact on that historic structure, and asked for it to be moved back to meet the wall of the historic structure, so that it's not blocking that setback that they have already established. And also in order to move this building up further to East Patrick Street, it's almost impossible with utility easements for that right in front of this building. So it pretty much has been designed. It's not quite there at the setback where HPC wants to see, but it is moved back to the point where, as you were reviewing it, was concerned about. They have brought in some identification kind of features for the door, the front entrance, having open space and sitting area for their residents. And so we were looking at the workshop that they wanted a modification for the 40-foot, not to have the 40-foot cement facade that's required in the Carroll Creek. They want to have it at, Gabrielle, am I thinking this right? 10 feet, I guess.
It's
They
to
want 10
use a
feet.
material
It's
that's
supposed to
not
be
always permitted except 40 feet above.
Right, right.
So the cementitious fiber cement siding
Right.
material is only permitted 40 feet above. We spent a lot of time discussing the use of brick below that height, but the building's not much taller than that.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I'm a little fuzzy there, but anyway, yes, Gabrielle's right, that they are looking for that siding and distance to be modified. They also have, let's see here. I think I've got that. Separation distances for the driveway. They're using the existing driveway that they have there. And the driveway across the street for that shopping center is requiring them to get a separation distance of 47.2 feet. It's required 200 feet. I got the 2 projects mixed up, but the separation distance for that arterial for the 2 driveways is 200 feet, and they're looking for 47.2 feet, which is already actually, if you think about it, already existing, because the shopping center is already there with their entrance, and they're using the existing entrance. the second entrance that was shared with J&K, they're looking at that they will not use that, and that will still be something the city will have to decide what that entrance will be. And surface parking, they're looking for in the Carroll Creek that they're supposed to have less than 90 feet between islands. And they're exceeding that in a couple of them, and this is supported by the fact that they're going to have landscaping and the interior parking inside the development. And the last modification to allow their street trees that are existing on site to be counted as their street trees, and we'll put those in maintenance easements for the city. That's their modification for that. And we did list a few things we'd like to see them clean up for the plans when they resubmit. And I think that's it. Oh, also the MPDU you had asked about, I gave you an Appendix A that we were trying to answer the question of what the pricing would be for those rentals. And that Appendix A apparently is incorrect. We'd have to follow up and see if we can find the existing pricing for you. But that was never approved by resolution, I guess, as Gabrielle was noting before. And so you want to ignore that Exhibit A, but then the resolution is accurate for MPDUs.
All right, Pam, thank you. We'll do the roll call. Commissioner Strawson.
Yeah, Commissioner Strawson. So my question has to do with the modifications regarding the cement fiber change and then the island change. Are the requirements that they're asking to be modified existing because of the Carroll Creek overlay? I mean, is that additional more strenuous, requirements because of the Carroll Creek overlay, or would those things be required regardless by the land management code? I guess where my thinking is that they were the ones who asked that the Carroll Creek overlay be applied to the property, and it just seems a little strange that if they did that and then they're asking to be exempted from requirements of the Carroll Creek overlay. See where I'm going with that?
Yeah, I would have to agree with you that they intentionally wanted the Carroll Creek overlay. This is
Right.
strict, this is stricter than MU standards, as we noted. This is something that is a requirement of both of those.
Okay.
We really don't have a strong objection to the islands because they are exceeding some of their open space and everything, interior and stuff, interior to the site. I don't know if we've given you the HPC reviewers analysis of it and what they would
Right.
say, how they correct it and comply with it.
Okay.
And maybe consider changing it just to the front facade, not having to apply it to all the facades, but look at that front facade for the Carroll Creek overlay. And so that's where we're standing right now, is thinking that just the front facade of that building A really should be noted as what the Carroll Creek wants to see.
Front facade as the facade facing the parking lot, or the front
East.
facade facing
East Patrick Street.
Okay. So this will be a discussion for Monday night. It seems to me that the creek side should also be included in that, but
the creek side, as you know, has property in between. And that we would hope eventually will either be developed by the city and sold or developed, or maybe it might be planted with trees. But it will also not really front on the creek.
So not for instance, compared to the project that's on East Patrick Street that literally fronts onto, East All Saints. That literally fronts onto the creek there.
It fronts on East Patrick Street.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking out loud. Don't mind me. And then my other question, because I have not had a chance to read your analysis of the MPDUs and the prices. So I guess what I'm hearing is that it's possible for a project to be, LIDIC and affordable housing, but still not qualify for MPDUs as an MPDU.
are asking for. Hold on.
I believe that most of the projects that do qualify under the low-income housing tax credit also end up complying with our affordable housing provisions.
Okay, so
Correct.
chances are this project will all comply with that as well. Okay.
They've got the rates on the Exhibit A that Pam noted. We're checking to see if there was a resolution that had adopted that. There's been some change in leadership at the Department of Housing and Human Services, so we're trying to get confirmation about which rents which the Department of Housing and Human Services actually implements this program. We're kind of just the conduit through the review process.
Right. Okay.
So, yes.
All right. Those were my only questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis, I had, I think, two questions. One was around the site J&K owned by the city, in which the applicant, I think, said they don't have a need for a shared path or shared access, but the city could continue to use it if they wanted to, or they can close it. And I'm assuming the city is using it for
J&K.
Yeah, for emergency access. So is the city gonna keep it the shared access open or closed?
The city has not decided that yet. I mean, they're going to develop so that they're not using that access. So whatever they have there now, the city will use or change that access if they need to for sale of the property or access there, whatever. But we do have the entrance to the north, which was required for emergency access to J&K that everyone was looking for.
Okay,
through the zoning, I believe.
Okay, can you show me on the site, on the sheets where that city-owned site J&K is? Like, I can't tell. Like, I see like these pictures and I see the actual Carroll Creek and a walking path. I'm not sure where this J&K piece of it is.
This brown and tan-ish color, if we're looking at the spires, that's all sites J&K.
Okay.
So the property doesn't directly abut the linear park, which is shown in the green. You have this area of sites J&K that ultimately will be developed at some point. The access point that's shared now and, kind of mostly on site J&K, that, as Pam said, isn't going to be used for our development anymore here. It's going to be still available. I believe it's used for utility access. There's some sort of operational interest that we may have in that currently. So we aren't doing anything with it.
Okay.
There's a lot of easements through there, utility easements, as Gabrielle said. There's a lot of utility easements across there.
Okay, so most likely, the city will keep that, I would think. I don't know. But anyway, my other question was about lighting. On the bottom of page 10, it talked about spillover light along the eastern and northern part of the property is prohibited. But I was kind of concerned about safety and lighting. And I was just wondering, it talks about here, the lighting levels can be reduced to 0.0 foot candles beyond the property line. Can you speak some more to that? I understand the concern for light spillover, but I'm also thinking about safety.
Well, you would have your parking lot, and hopefully the buildings themselves are going to have their lighting for security, and that's why they have interior parking and their main entrances into the buildings, interior to the site. But also, too, we look for the lighting in any area that's developed that we don't spill over to other properties that be annoying, or sometimes we do allow it if it's like a business park that's all, working as one. And everything, but this, with looking at the next development that would come in on J&K, we would want to make sure that it's not spill over into that property.
Okay. And I think my final question was something that was discussed the last time, and I'm just trying to make sure I understand. The last time my fellow commissioners were talking, and I assume that this is the project, but didn't like the back of the building facing Carroll Creek. Was it this project? Okay, so I was just wondering about that piece of it because I'm looking at these pictures here and I see the back of the buildings on facing Carroll Creek. And I'm just curious about that whole discussion that happened the last time we met, and you know where we are, a pulse check on what what's going on with that.
We definitely want to save any dialogue, conversation in terms of the commission, in terms of how we're reviewing. I'm sorry. The elevation. So we definitely want to save that for Monday. I think the applicant did at the workshop, mentioned that in a lot of construction like this, like with the terrace project we looked at too, there really aren't a lot of backs of buildings. Like you think about a shopping center where you go, well, that's the obvious front, and then that's the obviously back where you have operational type things going on. I would.
Okay.
Remind you, that's, something to think about, that none of them are really designed, not most residential that we see multifamily like this is, none of it's really designed to have an actual true front or back. Some sides may be a little less architecturally detailed, depending on their orientation.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
Commissioner Beatty.
Yeah, Commissioner Beatty here. The interesting question that Commissioner Manelis was talking about is, the reality is that the city-owned property to the, I guess it's west of this, the only developable thing that could happen there is really a road. I don't think there's any room there for the city to develop buildings. So I think just based on that, the quote back of this property is on the creek. And I know there are plans to continue Carroll Creek Linear Park towards actually all the way to Church Street, is my understanding. So for all intents and purposes, we are talking about the back of this building being on Carroll Creek Linear Park. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Commissioner Beatty, no, I think this kind of conversation is similar to what Gabrielle said. This is more the kind of conversation on our thoughts and hold that. And I encourage you to express that on Monday.
Okay.
But I appreciated Gabrielle saying it, because I would have probably wandered down that road too with some of my comments.
Right.
But in as much as you have questions for clarification or such, if you would continue then.
Okay. Yeah, and that's all I had.
Okay. Well, I wrote down a lot of things, so I'm going to be going along and editing out my statements. But one thing I will say, and I will say it on Monday, is it was very helpful to have more detailed renderings, because it gave us a better visualization of what this project would look like on East Patrick and on the parking lot and on Carroll Creek, et cetera. So that was very helpful. So on page 8, and the additions that were added to the staff report since the workshop, as far as the conversations with the Historical Planning Commission or the planning staff that oversees this area, were really, really helpful. So on page 8, halfway down, it says, after consulting with historic preservation planning staff, there are several opportunities to address. So my first question is, were those opportunities discussed with the applicant?
I don't believe we have had a big discussion with them about any more than just saying that we want you to comply, that they need this modification. I don't think we've had any more detailed discussion with them about this.
Okay.
So that's, something that they're come back for their second hearing to address, if they're, change their elevations if they want for the architecturals, you're able to ask for actually materials to come in if you wanted to see them. But anyway, that's
Okay, great. And as far as these options, I want to make sure I understand them. So the first, include brick on the entire second and third floors of the south elevation building A, and south is what you had said is on East Patrick. Second, consider brick for the tower element at the corner. So I assume that would, yeah, it's, yeah, that tower, okay.
right.
That tower. So it would be sort of half of it would be, and would it, and by the tower element, it would be also the side that faces the creek, I assume.
Yeah. And I
Okay.
believe we have had this, not particularly with these conditions, but we have discussed with the applicant about compliance and having that brick up where it's supposed to be. And I think they were concerned about cost of the project, which is not something we should be considering.
Right. Okay, sorry. Third, provide an enhanced architectural elements such as a bump out or bay windows are once again using brick of the first bay of the building on the east elevation to wrap around the recommended enhance. I'm not sure what that third bullet says exactly.
I think the exposure for that corner as you come in the driveway here and maybe seen from East Patrick Street's why she said that she wanted to follow suit with the front elevation with brick or a bump out with some interesting feature attributed to it.
The first bay of the east elevation. Thank you. That's exactly what it says.
Yes,
so
Gabrielle is showing there.
For pointing it out to me. Okay, great. Let me go back.
Keep it in mind with the architectural recommendations or suggestions. You know, these are the applicant is the architect. City staff is great at making recommendations and sharing thoughts, but at the end of the day, we really do put the responsibility on the applicants. These are their projects. So these were recommendations to kind of give them a taste for what sort of changes would start to create a type of massing and a type of environment that in the opinion of staff is more consistent. So if the applicant, and that's why it's kind of open-ended, a bump out, an architectural feature, if you're continuing that brick, that wrapping around, but really we want the applicant to take this and take it home and make it their own.
Right. And that's exactly the word that we gave them at the workshop too. Absolutely. Let's see. I think I only had one other question. Oh, yeah. Could, just for confirmation, could you go to the rendering that faces Carroll Creek and zoom in? So show where they said they have a primary entrance. I believe I know where it is, but can you show the primary entrance off of Carroll Creek?
Do they have unit entrances?
I thought it was to the left there where there's that little, but I could be wrong. So
building.
They have a entrance that has a levered canopy over it.
Well, where's that? Where there?
Mm-hmm.
I would think that's it. Okay. Got it. That's what I couldn't actually tell. So, and in the staff report, I think you said that's a primary entrance. It's one of the primary entrances that's required off the creek. Okay.
Keep in mind this is on the creek, right? So we have to be mindful that the primary, it's not the same sort of facade because it's not directly.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
So, and this will be a better question for the applicant, but the question that comes to my mind about this is, who's going to use that? Because there are no sidewalks unless somebody just walks across the green space and we create and pathways are created, unintended pathways, unless I'm missing something.
There's supposed to be a pathway system to connect to to J&K. And then I guess that would be continued eventually when it's constructed. And also then the shared use path will go down the creek and over to Highland. So they've got that sidewalk connecting there.
Now that's a sidewalk in between the buildings, but scroll up a little bit more. So that's where I thought, right there is where I thought maybe the entrance was, but I think that's back a house.
No, that is
right?
the cantilevered access.
Oh,
the other.
That goes way back in then. Okay, got it. Okay, so actually what you pointed to was not, or is it? I guess it is. Okay, so that's cantilevered. Okay, I see. So I'm going to ask the applicant, how do people access this entrance in the back? Since right now there are no path, there's no sidewalks. There's that patio. I see a little patio, right there, just a small patio. And it looks like it's kind of hard to see. There look to be two maybe landscaping elements on the corners of the patio and someone sitting out in a lawn chair. I'm looking on the rendering right there. Yeah. So that's my question, is where are people coming from to go in and out of that entrance? How's it being used? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So you don't need to answer that unless you know the answer.
Can we keep that up? Because I have a question afterwards.
Okay. So I'm assuming because there's crickets, you don't know that.
I think that's a good conversation for the applicant to flush out their thoughts.
Okay. All right, and let me just look real quick, Commissioner Manalis. I think that actually was this discussed with the app. Oh, wait. Nope, I had. I think that was it. So, Commissioner Manalis.
Yes, Commissioner Manalis. Thank you, Barbara. That was really good, because that was something else that I thought about as well, but I forgot to mention was, look, how are people walking on the green to get to the Carroll Creek? I'm just wondering about that, which wouldn't look that great. So what I wanted to know was, what was that space where the arrow is? See where that tree is? And there's a little nook there. What is that?
That's between the buildings. That's the path. If we can switch real quick over to the site plan, that is this area.
Okay.
Between the buildings.
So it stops short of going, creating a walkway or whatever, I guess.
Correct, because they don't own that property.
Oh. When you say they don't own that property, that means that what? That's the city's property? I'm confused.
Right, that's Sites J&K. So we have that intermediary between their site. We have Sites J&K, which is not part of the linear park. It's actually land that we intend to sell and let someone develop. And then we have the linear park property. So that is, for all intents and purposes, kind of a third-party property in between this site and the park. So as far as they can bring the path is to their property line. And then when we move forward with Sites J&K being developed, the goal would be to create a cross-access easement and require that developer to provide a sidewalk connection to get these people all the way to the park.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right.
The rendering?
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So Gabrielle, you're saying, so where that tree is, like, I guess that piece of the property does not belongs to the city, excuse me.
everything like out here does. That's looks like
Wow.
it's pretty recessed in between the two buildings, but everything that's kind of, and keep in mind when the architects do renderings, right, they don't show anything else but their buildings. So a lot of times we don't see the landscaping, we don't see a lot of the other detailing going on because their purpose is just to show you their buildings.
Correct.
But yeah, all of this kind of no man's land is
Sure.
somewhere in here is both sites J and K, and then the fee simple land that the city owns as part of the linear park.
Okay, and then there's a possibility that the city could sell that land in front of these buildings.
Correct. And we had development plans. Let's see if we can bring them up. We had a developer maybe back in 2008 and 2009 who had a contract on the sites J and K to purchase it. They processed site plans for multifamily buildings on that site. But then that was well, it was 2008. That was the beginning of the end in terms of the market, and the project went dead. And since then, the city's put out RFPs several times to sell it. I don't know what has materialized there. But we can see if we can find the final site plan to, give you some sort of context about what could go there. And that's not to say that that's what will go there, but, the kind of that project definitely was maximizing the developability of sites J and K. I forget how it was several hundred multifamily units.
Okay. And the final question I had was accessibility. I may have missed it, but I didn't see anything about handicap parking and just accessibility to the building front and back and side.
The accessible parking spaces are shown on the plan. All development applications generally have to have an accessible path from the public right of way. So in this case, it would be East Patrick Street to the buildings via sidewalk connections.
And that will be confirmed through the IPs that they have that available.
Okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
So to follow up on this conversation, and thank you, Commissioner Analis, if you could go back to the rendering, it does look like they stubbed out. See, right there, they stubbed out. So that may be what the applicant says as far as why this primary entrance on Carroll Creek only has a little patio, because it abuts the city land. Has there been any discussion from the city after this gets built for doing any temporary pathways over to the Carroll Creek pathway so people don't create their own?
There's been no discussion with that. We would say that they would go down to East Patrick Street and come over to, where the bridge is, and you go down the creek.
Yeah. Yep. This white.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. And that linear park does not have a path at this point.
Right. Is that white line supposed to be the path on the rendering?
That I would say they may be showing that's the path to the creek.
Well, no, it's a horizontal white line that bifurcates. Yeah. What is that supposed to be?
That probably
is the shared use path.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I thought. All right. Okay. Any other commissioner questions?
Yeah. So just out of curiosity, how wide is the narrow strip of J&K city property between the linear park and the buildings and this property line? How wide is that?
It also explains why now that's backing the creek and not facing the creek, because there's that property J&K that's between that.
You're on mute.
55 feet, 50 feet plus of J&K at East.
At that spot. So given that width and setbacks and things, if the J&K property is sold and developed, realistically, not much can go in that little strip, right?
When you can build up.
I think that might be helpful to see maybe that previous site plan, to see what they were anticipating at that location, or, as just one concept of what could be possible.
Right. And okay. And and we can bring up, discuss the idea of temporary paths or something on Monday night, but I think it's fairly naive to expect that people are going to walk all the way down to East Patrick Street. They're just going to walk across the grass. They're going to create their own paths.
They're going to create their own path until something else goes up in there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Sorry, I did not see your hand up until I actually saw your face.
That's okay.
Any other questions? Okay. This has been a good conversation. Very helpful. So this actually, it doesn't end our meeting, but it ends our conversation about the agenda. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Gabrielle.
Sure. So a couple just update things. In terms of the training that our legal department and ourselves were working on, I'm still working with Scott to get a rescheduled date for that. I apologize for the confusion. I think he wanted to cover, Commissioner Manalas had asked, what kind of subject matter he was looking to cover. And I think covering kind of some of the materials that we've talked about in the past, but we've had commission members rotate a little bit, talking about making motions, doing the fact finding, asking the questions, going that distance to say, well, I support the modification because X, Y, and Z, and really, doing our best to articulate, even if it isn't always in a very succinct statement, but showing that deliberate intent and discussion. I think you wanted to talk about some of that stuff. There have also been some discussions about with different boards in the NACS about the public Maryland Open Public Meeting Act. So you may want to touch on that. But we're working. We will get you confirmation of what date, and we'll make sure that we've got that all ready to go, and whatever background information we can get you ahead of time. If you do, it is not mandatory. If you do miss it, a couple options. Obviously, we tape everything, so you can always go back and watch and listen to the questions that your fellow commissioner members asked and things that we covered. But, at any point, if any of you individually want to talk with Scott or I or both of us or neither of us or whoever about any questions you have just about logistics of some of the things, we're happy to talk with you. So that would also be an opportunity afterwards. If you miss the training, we can kind of go over it one-on-one at any point. So that's that. So the world is rapidly evolving with COVID again. Unfortunately, I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy, and it is hard to do the more and more people get it. There have not been any operational changes that I've been advised of in terms of our plans for Monday or the following Monday. I will be wearing my mask. I encourage everyone to feel comfortable. Some of the board, if you watched the last workshop, last meetings, the board are wearing their masks. So please don't, not that you would, but please don't feel like you shouldn't. If that's what makes you comfortable. If you have any individual concerns, please reach out to Joe or I and see what accommodations we can make, or if it is an issue where you physically cannot be present, that is understandable in these days and ages. So unfortunately, don't have any changes of now. We'll plan on being there Monday night.
Gabrielle, Commissioner Manalas had her hand up, but then it was down. But
yes, yeah. Okay. The only question I had was, I know that I read the paper and that the mayor and a board, an alderman got, has COVID, and I guess I was wondering, were they prior to their revelation about having it, were they without mask in the room that we will be in on Monday? And that was one of my questions.
I believe that if you look back, to 2 weeks prior mayor and board meetings, I believe all of them had been in the room and not been wearing their masks. I watched the workshop on Wednesday. I don't even know what day it is, Wednesday. And some of the aldermen did have masks on. So
does the city and I'm sorry for not having the correct terminology, but does the city air out, plane out, wipe down, vacuum, air filter? Just, I guess what I'm after, I don't want to say after every meeting, but happen? And will that happen prior to us being there?
I do not know the regular maintenance schedule. Lance, if you're on and listening, if you have it, just because he's in that space physically, I don't know what, we do, obviously the buildings do have regular cleaning services that come through. I don't know what changes have been made due to COVID and any ventilation systems. I can definitely, though, I'm more than happy to ask, and I can send you an email, send the group an email.
Thank you.
No, definitely. It is a hard situation. I know everyone needs to act in their own personal best interest in situations like that. And I encourage, I myself do, I encourage my staff to, I encourage everyone, right?
Thank you.
That was one thing. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just want to follow up with that thought. So most likely I will be wearing a mask. So, and even during the meeting. So how easy is it? How have the mayor and board meetings been hearing each other and then hearing on TV with people wearing masks?
So just my personal anecdotal experience, I have a very hard time in the boardroom hearing what's going on. Watching TV, audio is great. Awesome, Lance. I feel like when I'm watching and I hear everyone very perfectly, but I do notice personally some challenges to hearing just in general. And then of course the mask does also, we lose some of the cues that we get from seeing people's faces. So it is a little more challenging for me personally than watching on TV, but it broadcasts very well.
Well, we'll see how it goes. And the plexiglass separators are still up, right?
Lance, I believe they've been removed.
Wow.
Is
I feel like I'm gonna.
Is that
It's
or
just
just
they've
you
been removed.
probably see your light blinking?
So the dividers are not up. They were taken down after our workshop meeting
That's crazy.
for the state of emergency. So the state of emergency correlated with the dividers. So once the state of emergency ended for the city, the dividers went down.
Well,
I don't know. Lance, are you there? I don't know I don't know how they were constructed and the ease of replacing them, or if that's been something the board's discussed in light of the ongoing. I will ask. That kind of led me to my second question related to meetings, and both in the long term, but now obviously at our workshop, we were very cozy. And I both in a long-term perspective, it seemed a little challenging with papers and books and binders. That me and Ron and Barb were pretty close and tight on our end. For the workshop now, moving into the future permanently, if the board is more comfortable up at the dais, both maybe in terms of a little more just breathing room and room for your stuff. The thought going into having you down at the tables was just to create a little bit more of a casual environment. The mayor and board workshop, they have been back up at the dais. They used to sit down low like that too for the workshops. So if you guys want to retreat back up, I think this group is, I think you lead good discussions and have good discussions formally and informally, and I don't think anything would be compromised going back up. So
I think I'd be more comfortable being back up and being able to be a little further apart.
I agree.
Well, especially if the plexiglass is put, it's kind of ironic that the plexiglass was removed in the workshop where the mayor and another alderman apparently got COVID.
I know. So it doesn't mean anything, but I am hearing that the commissioners would love to get the plexiglass back up, would feel a lot more comfortable. This is a volunteer job, and you've said often about what's being asked of us, and this is a big deal, being asked to come out in the public and then not to have the plexiglass up. So as the positivity rate has increased a big deal, a lot since the state of emergency was lifted.
Very
Mhm.
very well
Right.
taken. We will carry that forth this afternoon. And
Has there been any discussion of what conditions have to be like before we decide to go back to the this kind of meeting, the virtual meetings again?
not to my knowledge. So, but that, I mean, that isn't.
Can everybody hear?
I asked Gabrielle that same question yesterday.
Of course.
And it was a great question.
I think Lance is trying to get through.
Oh.
Lance?
Oh, were you there, Lance?
Yeah, can you hear me?
There,
Okay.
yes.
All right, so basically, City Hall are being run as we have been the last few weeks. No plexiglass, masks are optional. So for any concerns, Gabrielle, bring them to risk management, see what they have to say. But yes, the plexiglass are down, and I guess wear masks if you feel obliged to, and the public's not being asked to wear masks. It's remains optional for them as well.
Thanks, Lance. I'll definitely follow up with our race safety folks this afternoon. And
Gabrielle, did you want to address that
the
that survey, that report? Yeah.
Yeah, from the climate emergency work group. So my initial thoughts, and I think educational opportunities are great for all of us, and I looked for them myself. My initial concern is entertaining or having audience with different interest groups that are not in and of the city. We do have our own sustainability committee. I did reach out to Jenny about the nature of that report that they had compiled. Because the city did adopt a resolution in 2021, the climate action plan. We probably talked about it at some point. So we have some of our own research. We have some of our own work that's been city initiatives and of committees established by the city. If there are items like that we want to discuss and we want to bring forward informational items, having the time to do that, that then creates an environment where different interest groups can participate as public comment, and it's open to all of them, as opposed to just saying, oh, so-and-so reached out, let's have this group come. To create a forum that is advertised and open to the public so that every group interested in item whatever, A, B, or C, has the same opportunity to make public comments. So that is my take on it, that we should really focus on the initiatives that are and of the city, and then if those are discussed, then it creates a forum for all groups who may be nonprofits or various neighborhood groups, those sorts of things. It creates an environment for them to participate that way.
Commissioner Beatty.
Yeah, and I guess I was asleep at the wheel when we drafted the letter that that prompted this discussion. I probably should have weighed in more strongly on language that the request, I think, should have been more geared towards a study for the potential changes of building codes that is specific to the Planning Commission's work. So, for example, a lot of times we come up there and we kind of, the only thing we can do is kind of cajole people into putting either solar on their buildings, or a lot of the discussion has been with charging stations being put in. I was more interested in the city looking into the possibility of requiring some alternative energies to be applied in the building code. And obviously, it was a lot more generic, the language that we put in the Planning Commission recommendations.
And once again, outside the scope of the CIP, because now you're talking about legislative actions, so still, still the proper course of action, I think, that we took in voicing it in another letter. I think the inspiration for Commissioner Analysis recommendation was even kind of maybe broader than that, because it was looking at equity issues and looking at, how are all the things we do geared towards environment, whether it's doing stormwater and flooding studies downtown, how is that impacting different disproportionately, and who are those groups, and how do we engage them more? So it was even much broader and exciting, with some of the legislative changes. I will say that the mayor and board on Wednesday, Jenny Willoughby, our sustainability manager, did present a discussion about mandating EV infrastructure in developments. That's going to be a really interesting conversation. Her initial approach was to try to get feedback about where do we want to mandate it and how far do we want to mandate it, starting with, just mandating conduit being installed in commercial parking lots so that the end users can decide what kind of chargers they want, and doing the actual wiring, but not disincentivizing that by requiring somebody to repave an entire, rip up all this infrastructure. So creating kind of EV ready. So that is one of the many. I mean, that is just scratching the surface of all the different changes that we can make to building codes, land management code, but that may very well materialize into a text amendment that the commission will need to review if it gets into looking at our parking ratios like we do with bicycle parking, right? And we require so many number of bicycle parking. If we take that same sort of approach and start requiring EV ready, or maybe in some cases EV constructed, and it may also touch on sections of our building code, which would be changes to the city code, a little separate. But some of that definitely is occurring. Like I said, that is just one of the millions of different approaches we can take towards improving sustainability in our codes. The other thing that we'll be bringing forward, I think Pam dropped off, but our forest conservation regulations need to be updated, both to reflect some state changes, but also, lessons we've learned in implementation of our forest conservation program, and how we can work through the development process better to get more trees and preserve more trees. So that's also a good, I think part of it too, and I think it's a lot like the equity discussion in general. It's starting to look at all your legislation through the appropriate lens, right? Looking at everything you do and going, how does this, every text amendment we get, every change we make, every change the city makes to its codes, looking at it and going, okay, but how does this impact the environment? How does this impact different populations, different groups of people, and really kind of greening it all, because you take that look at it that way.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? Okay.
Barb.
Yes.
It's Jess. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I just wanted to come back around to the boardroom, since you guys are very concerned. If I was able to work with Lance and kind of have you guys sit every other seat, the only person I'm thinking that would affect would be Joan, and she actually would probably end up sitting where Gabrielle usually does. I could do it that way, and then I could put a planner at a table. So just recommending that, because it's Friday. Even if we email risk and safety, I don't know if they can get the plexiglass up by Monday.
Good thought, Jess. Would that be something kind of space us out?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Yep.
Okay, then I will email Lance and see what we can work out, and then hopefully all will be good. But we'll try out something.
Great, thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the creative thinking. Dorothy.
Yes, I had one question for Gabrielle. So we could individually reach out to those groups, correct?
Absolutely. I think that Barb and I were talking yesterday. I think by nature, this commission, all of our commissions are going to attract people who are engaged and interested. And there's nothing that being a planning commissioner prohibits you from being engaged in other aspects of our community. You know, if you feel concerned that you might have a conflict of interest, you know, the true conflict of interest, right, are really much more so related to monetary gain and benefit and those sorts of things than just, hey, I'm also interested in sustainability, or I'm also interested in, you know, a recreational group or whatever. So yeah, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the only thing is that when you're participating in things like that, you just have to make it really clear that you're there as an individual who happens to be on the planning commission and not representing the planning commission in any way.
Yep.
Yes, sound advice. Yeah, I would definitely make sure that
I agree.
people are aware of that. And no matter how much you say it, people will still be like, you know,
Right.
Dorothy,
That's
she's a
true.
planning commission member, but no, as long as you're doing your part to be very transparent about that, I think.
Yep.
Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Any other issues? Anything else? Well, really appreciate the discussion. Love this group. And the meeting is officially adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend,
We'll
everybody.
see you guys
And
on
we'll see you all Monday.
Bye.
Bye-bye.